Okay, we're here for another episode of Alarm Nerds. I'm Dave Schwartz, and with us, the legend, I have Jake Voll from SS&SI. I want to thank you very much for being with us today.
Oh, hey, thanks so much. I'm glad to be here, Dave.
So our topic for today is going to be kind of a fluid topic, how to choose the right line for your business. Basically, as the little guy, little woman, how do you figure out the right steps to grow your business? So if it's okay with you, Jake, we're just going to kind of hit the ground running. So
Oh,
I'm ABC Alarm Company. I might be a one-person band. I operate out of my truck. I'm a very small operation looking to grow. How do I figure out what makes sense? Is there, let's say I go to look at distribution, I go look at an individual relationship with a manufacturer. Is there one manufacturer that's good at everything when it comes down to, say, security versus video versus access? Is there one jack of all trades that makes sense?
that's a great question, Dave. And we sell multiple product lines from various manufacturers, and I wish I could say it was as simple as there's just one that gets it done, right? What we found is that certain manufacturers really do well with particular aspects of the business. And sometimes the integration across things like video, access control, intrusion could be really relevant to the dealers. Um, I would say though, if somebody's really looking to get started and to pick a product line, anytime you're picking a vendor, whether this is a manufacturer, a distributor, your payroll company, your insurance agent, I would see who you get the support from, right? Because I have seen companies that are successful with any and all of the product lines. There's no reason that you can't be successful with any of the mainstream product lines that are out there. But really, what's going to make the difference for you, especially as you're getting started, is going to be the level of support that you get from your reps, right? Again, that's just any vendor rep that you're working with. I think the difference you'll find in your ability to succeed and get on board with it is going to depend on the relationship you have with the field rep.
Well, it's interesting because there are some companies now that are very much going into the mindset of we want to be everything. We want to, we're going to make access, we're going to make video products, we're going to make building entry systems, we're going to make intrusion, we're going to make, some of them are going to make fire. And they say we're going to have everything in one ecosystem. And if we don't make it, good luck. And then you get other companies out there that are saying, let's figure out a way to be a little bit more open and we're going to integrate. Well, if we can't make it, here's some other options that you can choose. And I don't know what makes the most sense. I mean, like you said, if you find a company you trust, maybe you trust them to make that decision for you.
You know, I think there's I think that there's value in a broad ecosystem of products across product categories, and I think that there's a lot of value in the native integrations that are there. I also recognize the value of what I would consider like a curated ecosystem, right? Whether that's a company or a platform provider keeping everything in house, or it's a platform provider or manufacturer that kind of curates their integrations with third parties, right? Like we see different ways. Some folks are totally open and it's like you can write into our API and
Mhm.
and we're happy to just be open to anything and everything. And sometimes there's value in that. I personally think, the folks that are either at least somewhat cautious about it, right? Making sure that they have vetted the folks that are going to be communicating with their systems. I think that that's probably a wise choice, right? It's just going to control the user experience a little bit more. And then on the extreme of that is the folks that just kind of keep everything in house. That can be frustrating for some integrators and some end users in that, there may be another system that they want to integrate with it, a third party product that they want to integrate with it that they're not able to, right? And
Mhm.
and that's certainly a downside. But the upside to that is if they say it's going to work, it's going to work, right? You don't run into these scenarios where they've thrown their hands up in the air and said, "Hey, that's not a system or a product that we support." And so I really think in all cases, complexity is a challenge, right? So anytime there's complexity, either in the integration or the user experience, that's a challenge. So if you can overcome that complexity, either by being, a really great integrator that can tie all kinds of systems together and you understand the way that all that works, or killing that complexity with a curated ecosystem that eliminates the question marks, right? Um, I think that for the end user experience, if you always think about it from the end user experience, keeping it really clean and simple, and killing that complexity is really the most important thing. However you do that.
Well, you made a remark about how if they come out with something new and they say, it's going to work, you need to be able to trust that it will work. Have you found, and you talked earlier about being able to trust your source, whether, it needs to be a partnership, not just this is where I buy whatever. So are there sources out there where if they come out with some new widget, you just know it's going to work and it's going to meet my needs, or are you like a lot of us who are skeptical when something new rolls off the assembly line?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's that's a great question. I would say there are very few folks that have left me skeptical. I would say that caution is probably a good thing. I have seen with some manufacturers, uh, I think some things have come out too quickly, right? In other cases, we've seen frustration from integrators where something was introduced and I mean, everybody's seen this it's a joke, between distributors and manufacturers
Mhm.
that whatever the expected release date is, just add at least 6 months to it, right? Um, there's definitely frustration sometimes from integrators, especially when those integrators start kind of selling that future product to their end users. Um, but the good news is a lot of the times where we see release dates get pushed out, a lot of that has to do with manufacturers having really, or platform providers having really strict kind of beta programs, and where they say, hey, look, we're not going to release this until we have X number of systems deployed through our beta program
Mhm.
participants. We've got the feedback. Um, I would say that most of the mainstream manufacturers have done a good job of instilling confidence in dealers in things working. That's not to say that there aren't unexpected hiccups and challenges that come out. There's something to be said for having a product fully released, right, with
Mhm.
thousands and thousands and thousands of instances of it out in the field. That provides a lot more kind of real world feedback and testing. We definitely see some things come up. I think it's important to know that the manufacturers, when they see those issues pop up, that they're very responsive. Number one, in acknowledging the fact that there's an issue that exists. They're very quick to get out technical service bulletins and things like that to let folks know, hey, this is a problem, this is a workaround, and then that their development teams are working really hard to come up with a fix, right? Sometimes that's as
Mhm.
simple as a firmware update. Hopefully, we can avoid having to do RMAs and things. In most cases, we can.
Mhm.
Sometimes things
Well,
get
there are
goofy.
bad products. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen companies that not to count anyone else's money but have enough of it to know better, and
Yeah.
they design something in a bubble where everybody on their R&D and research team and engineering team said this is going to be the best thing that's ever come out, and then you end up with a complete flop. I mean, I think about a couple of years ago there was a company that makes primarily intrusion equipment that wanted to try making a PERS, and I was on a team that got to play with it, and they sent it to us and it had to be programmed through a keypad. We never even got to the testing phase. We said, we can tell you before taking this out of the box, this isn't going to work. And it's like, such a great idea that nobody thought to go to the field and say, would anyone ever use this?
Yeah,
So,
it's amazing to me. Sometimes when those things happen, you really got to ask yourself, like, did you ask anyone? Did you talk to
mhm.
anyone about this? Um, I think I think it's especially challenging when a manufacturer is going into a product category where they don't have the experience in it, right?
Hmm.
So like if you're an intrusion manufacturer and you release a product that requires keypad programming, you're like, that no brainer, man. It's just like all the
Hmm.
other products we sell requires a keypad for programming, right? And so, I think anytime a manufacturer or anyone's trying to get into a category of products or services where they have no experience, man, you got to go find those people that understand the business and ask them
Yeah.
questions about it, right?
You made a remark earlier about these manufacturers hosting a platform. So it's becoming more popular now where these companies that used to make a product are now getting to the service, becoming service providers, where everything is subscription based. There are a lot of companies that offer licenses. Is this just the way it is now? Is this something that's just a fad? Is this, or do you think, is the industry changing where you're now going to be in a situation where you can no longer just buy a product, but you anticipate you have to basically marry this company for as long as you're using this product with this customer?
Yeah, I think oftentimes marrying the company has a negative connotation. People are like, hey, like why should I have to continue paying this company? But particularly in the smart home space, we've seen products that have not had we'll call it a marriage commitment behind it. And unfortunately, the business model just wasn't viable to continue to support the hardware that had been deployed in the field. I mean, we think of a company like Wink, right? It's
Hmm.
releases a product and there's no RMR associated with it. And at some point in time, they just realize, hey, you know what? We can't continue to support this product. So I would
That's putting
suggest
it
that,
nicely.
yeah, I would suggest that, you know, integrators really look at companies that are willing to make a marriage commitment, because that really does provide a level of stability to the products, not just the new products, but the existing products in the field. A lot of dealers understand what RMR means to them, right? If you have somebody paying you
Hmm.
monthly every month, a lot of these guys will bend over backwards to make it right, to support that customer. When we put manufacturers in that position and keep them in, kind of in check, right? We want to make sure that there's competition out there so that they don't get, out of control, right? But kept in check, that's a very important relationship. It means that they have to, in order for them to maintain the recurring revenue or the license fees that they get from you, through you, from your customer. Um, I think that marriage is a potentially good thing, and I think we've seen that prove true. I mean, time and time again, we've seen integrators with customers that are 5, 10, 15 years old, that are finding that their manufacturing partners are willing to help them. I mean, look at the 2G sunset and the 3G
Hmm.
sunset. Because of the revenue associated with those accounts to the manufacturer, those manufacturers were willing to do all kinds of crazy things. I mean, after all the rebates, I don't know how any of those manufacturers survived the 3G sunset. I know that they wouldn't have had they not had that recurring relationship
Well,
with the subscriber through the integrator.
I think Wink is a perfect case study for why it makes sense to have this recurring relationship with your customers, because they went out, and I don't know how many they had in the field, but they had a pretty reasonable market share, but their customers were expecting continued innovation,
Yeah.
but they had no more money coming in, and there was no funding to support the company to continue to grow, to the point where when they went out of business very hard.
Yeah, and look, it was nothing for them to shut the doors and go and 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 be done with the business because there was no ongoing revenue associated with
Mhm.
those I say nothing. I don't mean to oversimplify it or to say, it was totally nothing to the people that were working there. But when you think about it if you look at it from like a business perspective, had there been some recurring revenue associated with that subscriber base, even if the business found that their existing operations weren't viable, it would have been likely that somebody would have come in and said, hey, look, we want to buy this business, turn it
Hmm.
around, make some changes, make it profitable, and not just turn out the lights on all those users. And so, yeah, I mean, what a wild, what a wild, I guess, example of a business going out.
Well, to kind of go in a more positive direction, um, is there such a thing as an entry level brand? So if I am, maybe I'm experienced in the in cameras and I'm new to access, maybe I'm going to try my hand at intrusion. Maybe I want to get in, I don't want to jump into fire because that's a little bit more sophisticated, but is there such a thing as an entry level brand, or does it make sense for someone to go either apprentice or partner with a larger company so that they can jump into more complicated equipment? Or are there stepping stones?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say that it's important. I think that the value that integrators provide is eliminating complexity, right? So I would caution anyone from look I would caution anyone against looking for a product that is so simple that it could be installed without any training or
Hmm.
any certification process. There should be a learning curve involved in it. Otherwise, your customer could probably do it themselves, right? Or it may be hard for you
Hmm.
to provide value there. Not to say that you want an overly complicated product. I would say that we're very fortunate to have a number of manufacturers and platforms that are out there that are pretty straightforward to get into. They have training resources available both in person and online. And so, yeah, depending on the product category, we talk dealers through figuring out their next step and their next partner across product lines all the time. And there's oftentimes we find that getting into that business, getting into that category is easier than they would have expected.
Hmm.
They do need to make the investment in training and time.
I think I have a tremendous amount of respect for the companies out there that are very hardlined, that they say we don't want you using our products until you know how to use them. Because if there are companies out there who say, I could figure this out. I've been using X brand for 20 years. How hard could it be to use Y? And they send their techs out and do a bad job. It hurts everybody.
Yeah, I think that there's with my distributor hat on here, I think that there's value in. I like to think that the best model is increased incentives for dealers to become certified, right? And
Hmm.
so we don't want to see products that are overly restricted to the point where if somebody's unhappy with their service provider, there's an insurmountable barrier to entry for somebody else to go out there, figure it out, and service that account, right? I mean, you want to make sure that there's at least the opportunity for consumers to switch if they're not happy with service. That being said, I really, really like manufacturers that provide incentives for their partners and their partners technicians to become certified on the products.
Hmm.
That is for us, it minimizes unnecessary return merchandise. It eliminates technical support and questions that they might not otherwise have if they had had some basic training on the product. And so I would say that restriction is good. We just don't like to see it overly restricted, right? We
Hmm.
and almost less about restrictions and more about incentives, right? If you do the steps, you'll be all the more competitive.
There was a vendor that I evaluated a couple of years ago where they had hidden in the language of their vendor agreement, they had a statement that basically said, at any given time, we can send one of our people to one of your customers and do an inspection. And if we don't like what we see, we're going to put a freeze on your account until your technicians go through another round of training. And I understand putting something like that in there, but when we read that, we said we could never sign this.
Yeah, it's I think it would be I don't think they should hide it. I think instead they should
Mhm,
say, hey, look, this is our certification program, right?
mhm,
And these are the the things that we want you to commit to in terms of quality, right? Like this is what we expect in a quality install. And if you can check all these boxes off consistently, we're gonna keep, you're gonna be able to be authorized to purchase our product or authorized to
mhm,
purchase our product at a discount or authorized to get some additional support that you might not otherwise get if you weren't authorized to shut you down right then and there because they didn't like it.
mhm,
I would obviously like to, if I was the integrator, I'd be like, hey, look, I trust my technicians, but you never know when the maintenance man's going to get out there and start, kind of messing around with
mhm,
something too. And so I would say that with anything like that, any kind of, um, and this goes into any vendor agreement, right? If there's a if there's an issue, make us aware of it and give us an opportunity to fix it, right? Like, and I think that's whether that's with a new manufacturer, that's anybody else, or just good business practice, right? Sometimes things get screwed up. Let whoever it is that did the screwing up know and give them
mhm.
an opportunity to fix it. I think that's a basis for just good relationships. Not even just business. I think that's probably a good basis for personal relationships too.
Uh, so let me ask you, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, the idea of a central station integration wasn't a thing. If when you were going from central station to central station, basically the only question you'd ask is, I mean, I don't know, you would basically just talk about price and support and what kind of relationship you'd have with as far as moving accounts here and there. But today, there's so much more involved depending on what types of technology you're using, whether you're looking at something like an alarm.com integration, you're looking at video verification. There are some manufacturers that have proprietary formats. There are a lot of radios that can't necessarily talk to every receiver. How important are central station integrations? And do you think that more or less any major central station should be fine and you should evaluate them elsewhere? Or do you really need to consider if you're looking at what kind of products, what kind of product line you want to offer, that's how you decide your central station?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it depends on the integration, right? It depends on what you're offering. Some of the integrations that we see it's typically between the platform provider, like a communications platform provider. Let's think cell units, I guess cell, smart home, et cetera, kind of platforms. Um, we oftentimes see those integrated with the central station so that you don't have administrative kind of swivel chair,
Hmm.
entering subscriber data into one platform, then entering, let's say that you have to enter it into your, communication platform. Then you have to enter it into your central station. You're also entering it into your accounting software. That's a lot of data entry, double and triple data entry. It creates a lot of opportunity for error as well. And
Hmm.
error in billing is scary, but error in central station, information is even scarier. I would say it's valuable, right? And so I would make sure that, depending on the product lines or the platforms that you're utilizing, to ask those folks, hey, look, who do you integrate best with, right? Where do you have the deepest integrations? That being said, if you have a central station partner that doesn't have that deep integration, I wouldn't necessarily say to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I would say have a conversation with your central station partner that you've come to know, like, and trust, and say, hey, this is important to me.
Hmm.
And whether they do it or they don't do it, I think you'll learn a lot about your central station based on their response to your question. So yeah, I would definitely say subscriber data is one of the most important. But then we see even like other integrations, ASAP to PSAP, where we're pushing data right into the PSAPs from the central stations, and that's really cool too. And the video monitoring stuff is exciting. But again, it really boils down to what you sell, right? There's all kinds of integrations and things that are out there, but the most important ones are going to be related to the products and services that you sell.
It sounds like a theme across our whole talk has been it's more about the relationship than about, the nuts and bolts. It's more about, do you trust them? Do you feel they're going to take care of you? Are they going to take care of your subscribers? Am I reading that properly?
Yeah, I've built my business on relationships. Most of our partners have really built their businesses on relationships, both with their subscribers and with their vendor partners. Um, I feel like it's very easy. Um, a lot of times we can get lost in spec sheets, right? And
Hmm.
features and capabilities. Um, but really the most important part of doing business with your customers and your vendors is maintaining open communication and maintaining trust with them. That goes both ways, right? You're communicating with them, they're communicating with you, and neither of you are giving the other person a reason not to trust that you have their best interests at heart. And so yeah, I would definitely say relationships. That's a big one for me.
What do you think is a bigger risk for a dealer, having too many offerings or too many different kinds of customers? So, you know, do you put all your eggs in one basket and say, I'm going to be just this kind of shop and this is all I'm going to offer? Or do you want to be the integrator who every time a new opportunity comes up, I'll get certified in this, I'll get certified in that, and I'll just do whatever the customer asks for?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely risk of becoming a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? I think that if you're going to explore a new product or service offering, to make sure that there's somebody within ideally more than one person, but at least one person within the company that's going to own that from start to finish, right? They're gonna understand the product or the platform inside and out. They're gonna understand how to install it and service it from inside and out. And they're there to support customers, pre-sale and post-sale.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of danger in just spreading yourself too thin, not really specializing. Um, that being said, rather than looking for all the opportunity that's out there, instead I would make an assessment of how many opportunities you lose because you don't do something that your customers are asking you for, right? Like, if you're a security guy and you don't do access control, it probably makes sense for you to do access control. If you're a security guy and you're like, hey, I can make money on selling phone systems, and none of your customers are asking you for phone systems,
Hmm.
I would give less credence to that, right? Look at adjacent products, adjacent service categories, and look at missed opportunities. There's endless opportunity out there. I would really focus on which ones you're missing out on before jumping into a new offering.
Should a smaller company try to keep inventory lean and mean and project based, or does it make more sense to take advantage of bulk pricing and sales and stock up and focus on the long run?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's probably a blend of the two, right? And all of it should be based on forecast and data. I would not, I would not take advantage of bulk pricing on a product that you're not going to need.
Hmm.
But if there are products that you can get on a discount that are on promo, and that you're going to use a certain amount of that product over the next 90 days, hey, that's an opportunity to stock up. But now stocking up a year's worth of inventory, I think it's unnecessary. I think that it creates issues with warranty down the line if you're sitting on this product for a long, long time.
Hmm.
Um, I would say avoid having to stop by the supply house on the way to your jobs. Make
Yeah.
sure that you've got enough inventory to service your accounts.
Hmm.
Make sure that you're ordering well enough in advance that you're not having to make an unexpected run to pick something up. That's just efficient, right? doesn't save you any money to be sitting in traffic on your way to a supply house.
So with the rise of DIYers out there getting more involved and in a lot of cases focusing more on cost over quality, what impact do you see on the NRTL listings, the UL, the FM, the ETL? Do you think that that becomes something that's only relevant in high security? Do you think it's something that goes away? Or do you think at some point the bubble's going to pop and a lot of these DIY companies are going to run to some sort of an insurance compliance issue and you're going to see them you see it go the other way?
Yeah, I would say that, NRTL testing is it is both relevant and important. And I think that professional service providers should be looking to NRTL listings to make sure that the products that they're installing have been tested, whether that's UL or ETL,
Hmm.
or Intertech. But the listings are important. And what the DIY folks are able to do or get away with, I can't speak to that, but I could definitely say that if you're a professional, I would make sure that you're looking at the listings and the products that you're selling.
We had a conversation on an earlier episode about the DIY category, and the general consensus among two people was, if you're competing against DIY on an opportunity, you shouldn't be because you're competing for a customer that has already expressed that they don't want you, and it shouldn't be a part of your discussion when you're going to market. If there's DIY in the conversation, move on.
Yeah, I think too often dealers are focused on selling I think when they get the DIY question, they focus on selling the differences in the products.
Hmm.
And I think that's largely irrelevant. I think that the most important value that the integrator provides is their service, is their ability to go out there and install it and program it and make sure it's working. Um, I think if we just ask folks, hey, do you want to install it yourself? Um, we can really get to the bottom of whether or not there is even an opportunity, right? Because I can tell you, I there's so many things I could do at my house. I could go to Home Depot and get things to do at my house, but they never get done. I hate doing them. I'm not good at it. And so even if it is DIY, even if DIY is possible, man, it's not something I want to do. I'd much
Hmm.
rather pay somebody to do it for me. And I think most dealers should probably just stop and ask folks, hey,
Hmm.
you really want to do it yourself? Because we could have a tech out there tomorrow to do it for you. And that changes it changes the dynamic a lot, I think.
There are a lot of people that are, oh, I'm pretty handy, and then you see what that means, or you find out that, like you said, it turns out it's not going to get done for 6 months.
Yeah, well, there's a long list of things that we wanted to get done around the house, and I
Hmm.
just wish my wife would stop reminding me every 6 months to do them.
Well, I mean, I've been on so many commercial projects where they say, we don't want to pay for the service call or we don't want to pay for the maintenance plan. So we're just going to have one of our people figure it out and give it a year or two. And now you have a much higher expense to clean up someone's mess because they didn't really know what they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the systems you just gotta kind of shake your head and think like, man, that's just not a good idea. I mean, when we're talking about security and life safety, DIY, particularly in a commercial and multifamily level, it's just
Mhm.
scary stuff.
So we're almost out of time. So I want to ask you just a few questions if that's okay.
Sure.
So how would you define trunk slammer? And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What are your opinions on the term?
It's funny. I'll tell you how I wouldn't describe it. I wouldn't describe it as the man in a van guy that's a professional, that's a technician that's gone out on his own and stands behind the products and the service that he provides. I think a lot of folks, will quickly write off a small company as a trunk slammer. What I would describe it as is somebody that gives the brake light, the brake light warranty, right? Like they're out of there, and you can't stop them once you can't see their brake lights anymore. That's it. That's a trunk slammer, somebody that doesn't service the customer. And I'm a big proponent of the entrepreneurial, industry that we're in. I love to see guys get out there and start their own businesses. And I think oftentimes we're too quick to call folks trunk slammers that maybe just don't yet have the resources of their larger competitors.
What do you think is the biggest difference in the industry today versus 5 to 10 years ago? And what do you think the industry will look like in 5 to 10 years from now?
Oh, good question. I think that 5, 10 years ago we were still selling primarily security, and now I think we are selling more lifestyle technology. The smart home. It turns out that the smart home stuff was not a fad. It wasn't a gimmick. It's here to stay. I would say 5, 10 years from now, we're just going to see deeper integrations, really cool things that your systems are going to be telling you about your home, about your lifestyle, and making things all the easier for you with insightful recommendations. I think that once the data is able to kind of give you suggestions, that's where it's going to get really exciting.
And what's one brand or manufacturer that you think most dealers probably haven't heard of, but you think they should?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say I'm gonna step back from manufacturer, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with service. I think that there's a lot of folks sleeping on video monitoring technology right now. And there's so many folks that have gotten into this space right now from a hardware to a software perspective, some really cool stuff with AI. The central stations are doing some cool stuff with it. I would say don't sleep on video monitoring technology. That's the full tech stack from the hardware in the field that makes it possible to the software to the central station integrations. Don't sleep on video monitoring.
Great answer. All right, so that's about all the time we have for today. So, Jake, thank you so much for joining us. Uh, what's the best? I mean, obviously everyone knows who you are, but what's the best way for people to find you?
I would love for people to check us out on our website, and we'll link to that in the description here. But also, if you ever need me, call the toll free on our website. Ask for Jake. I'm always happy to jump on. You can find us on Facebook on Burglar Alarms Online, the alarm industry's Facebook group. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you, and or just ask Dave. Dave's got my info. He'll send it over to you.
And I would say the biggest distinguishing factor about Jake is, which somebody asked me on a previous episode, is that there are Jake's model of blessed and branded equipment is more than just putting your logo on materials. It's understanding the value of marketing your brand. And I think
Good.
that's something that you don't see everywhere.
Well, thanks for recognizing that, Dave. I have been so proud to be a small part of the success story of hundreds of, security integrators nationwide. And if there's anything I've learned, it's that they put a lot of pride in their brand and their reputation. So we're very proud to support them by printing it front and center on their hardware.
Thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Dave.